challenge, and I want to talk about some cold calling basics today. The deal is sometimes all the business that we want, it doesn't just come to us. It doesn't just land in our laps, right? Sometimes what we have to do as business owners or salespeople, as entrepreneurs, is we got to go after it, right? We've got to be proactive about it. So what we do on the phones is we call leads that came in and maybe hung up that we never spoke to. We call on skip trace leads. We call on things like for sale by owner leads. We just plain do some cold calling. The most aggressive wholesalers, fix and flippers, anyone who wants to buy off-market properties or just proactively get a hold of people, no matter what niche you're in, you do some cold calling. But everybody knows cold calling can be tough. You get a lot of pushback, right? You get a lot of angry people, upset people, people that push your buttons, people that really don't like you calling them. And whenever that happens, well, we're just not very effective, are we? Same old story. What that leads to is just wasted time, wasted money, people's attitudes really go down the chute. And to make all of this even worse is besides getting those types of results, it's just not fun, right? I mean, not even a little bit. But if we don't do it, if we just cut it out of our businesses altogether, we know we're literally flushing cash away. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? And what I want to talk to you today about is making it a little easier. So instead of a rock and a hard place, is that a rock and a soft place? I don't know. I've always wondered what the opposite of between a rock and a hard place was. Maybe it's being not between anything, right? Anyways, let's get back to business here. Let's go over some cold call basics, okay? These basics will help you save time, make money, not hate life, or not run through employees, depending on whether you're doing it or your employees are. So here's the first best practice. You need to identify who you are and why you're calling as quickly as possible, because you can't pass go until you do. And there's a Monopoly reference. So millennials on the listening to this video, watching this video, you may not get it, but listen, we can't get past this part of the call. We can't progress into anything we want to talk about until we cover who we are and why we're calling. The prospects, the caller, or the people on the other end of the phone, they simply won't let us, right? So we got to answer those questions immediately, and we got to do it every single time. Now, I've trained cold callers, stateside, VAs across the world, and every single time they get hung up on the beginning of a call, it's because they did not identify who they were and why they're calling. So that's probably the most important point I could make today. If you're calling and saying, "Hi, is blank there?" That's wrong. Call and identify who you are and why you're calling immediately. If you ask for someone just right off the bat, they're going to say, "Who is this? Why are you calling?" Exactly, right? Who are you and what do you want? You'll get that every single time. So I cannot stress that enough. Next, we got to use a pattern interrupt, right? We got to stay out of that salesperson's box. We talked about that before in one of our trainings, right? We're going to have to do something to not be seen like every other salesperson out there. Next, well, we're going to want to assume that we reached the right person. Here's the deal. Most people today use cell phones. So if we ask for a specific person, their salesperson alarm, their stranger alarm, that's going to go off almost immediately. Think about this. If somebody called your cell phone and said, "Hey, is Tom there?" or whatever name, you're going to know immediately, just because they're asking for you or for whatever they ask for, that they're not supposed to be calling you. They don't know who they're calling, right? Because people who call your cell phone just say, "Hey, what's going on, Tom?" So we want to assume that we always reach the right person. And if we don't, that's okay. We can assume and they'll correct us. They'll go, no, wrong number. Or no, he's not here right now. That's okay. Next, here's what we want to do. Stay out of the salesperson's box and keep our prospect out of autopilot mode. There are certain things that we do that are going to trigger autopilot, where our prospects, the people we're calling, treat us like every other salesperson. So we're going to have to do a few things as we work through this call to stay out of that salesperson's box. And another thing that we're going to want to do is hold back any intelligence. We don't want to volunteer intelligence. What do I mean by that? Well, we don't want to talk about things like where we got their information or what we know about them, right? If we're calling off a for sale by owner list, a foreclosure list, we don't want to get into those specifics. When we say, hey, I know your house is being foreclosed on, well, what that's going to do is that's going to invite a lot of questions. And that's going to lead to even more questions, right? And all of those questions are going to lead to the call going south pretty darn quickly. So taking all of those best practices in mind, let's talk about what a nice, simple opening on a cold call should sound like. Here's an example using all those things we just talked about. Hey, this is John with We Buy Houses. Listen, I know this call's kind of out of the blue. I'm really not sure if I've even got the right number, but I'm actually looking to buy a house in the area right now. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in looking what I could maybe pay cash for yours, just to see what I'd be able to pay. So let's break that down. We immediately say who we are, why we're calling. We stay out of the salesperson's box, right? By saying, hey, I know this is out of the blue. I'm not sure I even have the right number. We leave them off balance. They're not automatically in that autopilot mode. And then we explain some more about what we're doing. Hey, I'm actually looking for a house in the area right now. Didn't know if you'd be interested in seeing what I could pay cash for yours. And that's it. That's short, that's sweet, that's simple. That just encapsulated every best practice we just talked about, and that is a highly, highly effective script. Now, lots of times what you'll get is, well, who did you think you were calling? Or what area, what house? And once they start asking you questions, you're in. They're inviting you to give more information, to ask more questions. The conversation started. You just broke that impossible cold call barrier, and you're into the conversation. Right? Not only are you into the conversation, you didn't have to force your way in, they invited you into it. So let's look at another example. Let's look at an example because I've got this question a lot lately. People skip tracing, right? Hey, we see all these vacant properties around town, or we have some type of list of vacant properties. We're doing a lot of skip tracing for one reason or the other and tracking owners down. What the heck do we say when we call them? We don't even know if we're calling the right people in a lot of instances. Well, here's a nice sample script. Hey, this is John. Listen, I know this is kind of out of the blue, but my partner drove by a property at 123 Smith Street a week or two ago, and I think, based on what he said, it might be for sale, but he said he didn't see a sign in the yard. Anyways, I was interested in it, and I was wondering if I'd be able to make a cash offer on it. Are you, by chance, the owner of that house on 123 Smith Street? That's it. That's simple. The best practices, right? Keep your prospect off balance. Stay out of the sales person's box by using a pattern interrupted first, and then not sounding like a salesperson all the way through it. State immediately who you are and why you're calling. And guys, there's a lot more we could talk about, obviously. Things like objections, and there's 1,000 different call scenarios, 1,000 different ways these calls can play out, right? And there's 1,000 different types of callers who have different attitudes, who treat you differently. But the truth of the matter is, I'm on slide 44 of 44, so we're out of time today. I'll see you tomorrow.